Sweet. Yep. So yeah, I'm Blake, and so we have a pretty cool presentation with Hanwha. We got some people that Mason Bortz put together and communicated with them. He has a relationship with them. But me personally, I've had some experience with Wisenet and Hanwha, and the cameras are top notch. That's my preferred camera to deploy with VMSs, of all different kinds. So I have a lot of experience with Hanwha. Super excited to get them here today. So Mason, yeah, if you want to I'm going to kick it over to you and just kind of say what your experience with them is, and then we'll kick it over to Hanwha.
Yeah, so my experience has been really good with them. We started using them a little over a year ago. Been really happy with them and impressed with the quality and the lineup. They just offer a really wide range. So whether you're doing like a mom and pop restaurant or you're doing a high security application, they kind of got you covered all across the board. So I want to bring them on for them to kind of show what they have and give a demonstration, since you can look on their website all day and you can talk to other people, but having something that's clear and concise is really good for people making decisions on upcoming jobs. Noel was kind of my sales rep for a while, and then now Brian is, and Noel still is in some ways. So I've been really happy with them. I've been really happy with the sales team and the support that they give. So I'll hand it over to Noel.
Thanks, Mason. Appreciate it. And Blake, thank you very much for setting this up. My name is Noel Gagno. I am the area sales manager for Hanwha Techwin in the Midwest, covering the Great Lakes area. On this call with me is Brian Sampson, regional sales manager from Indiana, and senior field application engineer Jason Clement. And that's one thing that I really appreciate you guys talking about, is the partnership that we bring to the table. We have an internal joke, and obviously joke not to be taken verbatim, but we want to be the telco of early 2000s and have a really good reputation, have a really good support mechanism in place to support our customers, but not forget technology needs to be advanced. That's obviously being the caveat there. We want to make sure we're giving you the best product, but also giving you the best support. So at the end of the day, if we're not supporting you, the product can be as great as it is, but the user experience won't be good. So as we go through here, you'll see a lot of things that are meant toward that and enriching your guys' bottom line and making life easier for you guys too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a PowerPoint. I'm really not a big PowerPoint guy, so I've only got a few slides here. I'll rifle through these pretty quick, just so Jason can get to the really cool stuff like our artificial intelligence, 32 megapixel PoE extenders, all the different things that really make us unique in this very large space. But real quickly, I won't beat you guys to death in our corporate profile, but one reason I like to show this slide is if you look, and these financials are from 2017, so I'm not even getting into the most recent, is that in a very large industry with a lot of players, we're actually 2 times larger than the largest player. And by the largest player, I'm referring to Canon. So Canon, who owns 2N, Axis, Milestone, BriefCam, and along a number of other of technology brands, is actually a $30 million company. So if you look at our biggest competitor of Axis in a conglomerate space, we're actually 2 times the size of Axis. And that really shows in our R&D development. If you're looking at our workforce in general, 75% of our personnel are purposed for R&D. And all these guys do are finding ways to make components better, making your installs better, lowering failure rate, and then advancing the technology curve. Because we are building R&D for CCTV. Unlike our competitors, we're not building it for broadcast. We're not building it for overall electronics. We're building it for CCTV only. And if you're looking at a broadcast standard, it's entirely different than CCTV. Broadcast, those chips are designed for perfect lighting conditions. They're designed for different type of digestion. If you look at CCTV, we never know if it's going to be low light. We never know what the sun's going to be like. Is it going to cast a shadow? And then also we have to be able to advance our analytic edge-based technology, but then keeping it to a smaller package across your network. So coming up with things like HSAT265 and implementing that into the industry is really what separates us from our competitors. Talking about compliance. Compliance is huge right now. Obviously, COVID sidetracked, but the amount of issues with cybersecurity that was coming out of China has been a huge issue. We are TAA, GSA compliant, and DAA compliant. None of our products are designed or produced in China. We actually pulled out of China entirely in 2018 and have been fully compliant with the NDAA ban. Anything from Hanwha Techwin is either designed and or produced out of Vietnam or South Korea. No components, once again, coming from China. And that really drives down to that system on chip design. So you had a lot of Chinese manufacturers assembling CCTV stuff, equipment in really uncontrolled environments. Contract working labor, you don't know who is designing those, the hardware. So a lot of backdoor passes were used, a lot of issues with cybersecurity. If you look at the two snapshots left and right down here, this is our Vietnam facility, multi-billion-dollar facility. And all the employees here are Hanwha Techwin employees. And the reason I show the picture on the left is that's actually the machine that makes the DSP, so it makes that digital signal processor or the chip. That machine is made by Hanwha. So Hanwha controls the soup to nuts further than anyone else, because the machines that make our cameras are also controlled by us and created by us. So when you're looking at a compliance standard as well as overall quality, we have the best quality in the industry because we are controlling the process from beginning to end. Just like I'm up in Detroit, so obviously automotive is huge up here. You have the big three who then buy, spark plugs and nuts and bolts and springs and brake pads, all these other different components from a multitude of tier 1, 2, and 3 OEM manufacturers, and then they create their component. CCTV is no different. A lot of these top tier manufacturers are actually paying other companies to create their components, and then they're labeling it as their own. We don't OEM outside of the channel, so you'll never find our chip in a different camera, or nor will we be OEMing in the future. We're not going to be white labeling stuff. We are a true manufacturer that purpose builds all these components for CCTV. And once again, it gets back to that quality assurance that we have in place, and our low failure rate is we're controlling the product beginning to end, soup to nuts, giving us the ability to have a higher quality rate and a lower failure rate. Once again, just GSA TA compliant, NDA compliance, all the stuff is published on our website. So if you have any questions, we can refer you there or get you legal documents as well. Cybersecurity. So our largest vertical currently, and obviously ever-changing, ebb and flow, but our largest vertical that got us where we're at today is the finance vertical. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Huntington Bank, KeyBank, First Cash. There's a number of large banking institutions that, as you know, are a target for cybersecurity vulnerabilities. We take this very seriously. We harden our chips. Our unified API limits things like SSH and Telnet that are used to spoof and otherwise take over cameras. We release firmware from encrypted from source to source. So there's a lot of things we're doing differently than our competitors because we have to be fully compliant with cybersecurity. All of our cybersecurity checklists are published on our website. Hardening guides published on our website. So these are things that we take very seriously, and that's something that really can advance you from your competitor if you know how to talk that lingo. We do BIC accredited classes. If there's anything that I can ever, we can help you out there. Let us know, or talk to your local RSM in your area, and we can get you guys squared away on that as well. But long story short, knock on wood, because you can be hacked at any time. But we have done a very good job and never been any major hacking. If you look at our competitors, they are not as clean on the record as we are for that. So we take cybersecurity very seriously. I'm just going to show this real quick. This is a naming convention guide. And once again, leverage your Hanwha RSM that's local to you or your rep firm to help you until you guys get up to speed. But essentially, since we're a true manufacturer, we create the chipset. So each chip has its own designation. Just like Mason was saying, we have a huge product portfolio. So we have your aim, point, shoot, burner camera. If any of you guys are familiar with wired, you use the cell phone and you burn it, right? With those very small $100 cameras, all the way up to a high-end line and everything in between. Just to give you an example, PTZ technology. We have a 4.4 micro, 12x mini, a 20x 4K, 32x 2 megapixel, 37x 2 megapixel, and a 55x 2 megapixel as well. So we have the full plethora, depending what you need from short, far, and in between, with IR, without IR. So everything we build is around the idea of having a very clean and robust product portfolio. So when you're looking at the series name, for instance, the X would be our excellent line, Q being quality, and all the way down. And I'll get to that in a second here. But each chip has its own feature set, and it goes by series, unlike a lot of other manufacturers. And then the next one would be N for network camera, C for an analog camera, and then on down through your form factor for if it's a bullet, if it's a box, dome, vandal, PTZ, self-positioning camera, zoom box, multi-sensor. So to get you guys up to speed, use your resources around just to get you guys up to speed so you're not killing yourself with it, because there is a rhyme and reason to the nomenclature. At first it may look odd, but there is a rhyme and reason to that.
I'd like to just add to that. it did take me a minute to kind of understand, but once you understand how they put together those numbers, it makes it really easy. I mean, I can search for a camera that I don't even know if it exists, but I understand how they would put together that model number. So I can search for that and go, oh, hey, that doesn't exist, or oh, hey, that does exist. And I don't need to look at any brochures or any marketing. I just know based off of their naming scheme what exactly I'm looking for. So I found that to be extremely useful.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. We also do have a tool online too, a product selector guide that will give you, if you're looking for day and night, looking for IR until you're up to speed. That's right on our website. Even our free downloads of software or device manager, things like that Jason will go over, that's on our website too. So if you go there, there's a product selector guide that'll get you started out until you're comfortable. But thank you, Mason, I appreciate that. Looking at the series of chips, and the next slide is going to show more of a breakdown here, but P is more of our 4K or multi-imager line, so high megapixel. X series is our 2 and 5 megapixel full suite analytic cameras, good wide dynamic range at 150 dB WDR, full frame rate up to 60 frames per second with true WDR at 2 megapixel or 5 megapixel, good low light at 0.004 lux in color. So a lot of industry leading metrics are just in our everyday high-end X series cameras. Q series, great aim, great picture, aim point shoot, good wide dynamic range, not as good as the X series. Limited analytics, unlike the X series, but still a great quality camera. And then we do have our niche cameras, so thermal, explosion proof, self-positioning cameras, corner mount cameras for any type of anti-ligature camera needs. Those would be in your T series line. And then we have our HD Plus series too, if you need HD over coax. We have quad protocol, so we can do AHD, which is our standard advanced or analog high definition, TVI, CVI, and CVBS too. So if you have either DAWA or Height Vision, you need to incorporate that. Our recorders and cameras are quad profile as well, or protocol. This is about the evolution of our chipset. Once again, it drills down to being a true manufacturer. So unlike a lot of our competitors, we're not going to be OEMing our chipset. Our chipset is built internally and purpose-built for CCTV. This is just showing the advancement of us throughout the years. So starting with 720p with a full frame rate in 2010, and as you can see, each year incrementally we're getting better. The Koreans do have a weird thing with naming and numbering. So Wisenet 7 is the next one. There's some taboo things with certain numbers. I don't fully get it either, but that's where we're at. So Wisenet 7 will be the next reiteration of the Wisenet 5, and we'll incorporate line-by-line WDR through a global shutter, and we'll be getting a higher frame rate with higher resolution and better metrics once again than we have in the Wisenet 5. I'm going to skip this slide. This just kind of shows a real quick breakdown. I can get you guys this information. This is the bigger thing. So looking at the product portfolio. So the X Plus, which I'm going to jump to here in a second, is a more install and feature-rich version of the X. But this just shows the breakdown of our comparison. If you're used to a certain manufacturer, let us know, and we can cross models for you. So for instance, I know Axis very well. So Axis's Q series is our X. Axis's P series is our Q or X Lite. And our Axis's M is really our Q2. So we have a really good price point camera that actually exceeds Axis. So if you have a product portfolio, be it a Visualon, Panasonic, Sony, Axis, American Dynamics, Dahua, LTS, you name it, we can break down our division of technology and cross it for you to make it easier. The X Plus, so once again, the big thing that really separates us outside that true manufacturer is we are looking to enhance user experience, enhance the experience of installing the cameras. And with that being said, we have things that will lower your labor. The X Plus, for instance, when you open the box, has a pre-perforated cut on top where it exposes the RJ45. Plug the camera in, and you can actually program the camera without pulling it out of the box or touching it at all, which is going to lower your overall labor. This same camera also has functions called PTRZ on certain models, hand, tilt, rotate, zoom, and that's so you can position the camera remotely. You don't have to actually move it at all. It's like a PTZ that can drive 360 times, and it's there for to move it remotely, or if you want to drive it in or out, or the customer, per usual, wants to see a different part of the scene, you don't have to get back up on that lift. This camera also has a modular design, and by modular design, I mean this right here. So this is a camera. It's a camera module, kind of like our multi-head-lens cameras are like on a certain model as well. The idea of this is easier to migrate them to a higher megapixel or a new form camera. So our Wisenet 7, our AI cameras, they all have this module like this. So if you future-proof your customer with a 2 or 5 megapixel X Plus, That will keep them future-proof along the line of all of our new iterations of our cameras. So instead of taking down the entire camera and putting up a new one, you literally take the top off, pull out the high-power magnet, and pull the camera right out without touching the body of the camera. When you're looking at install, you can hand your electrical, if you're going to sub out the labor, hand them your back plate, and then you can hold on to the camera itself. As soon as they run the wire, you can go there and put the camera back together. For service too, if the camera has an issue, you can RMA the module of the camera. So being able to either migrate them into new technology or just service that customer will be much better with this type of design here. This camera also has a few added features. We have skin colors, so you can predetermine your skin color and put it on the camera. And it will come out of box white. Every single camera comes with an ivory cap, and then you can also buy black or customize those colors. There is also added features on top of what the X has. We have a edge playback. So if you have an analytic running, for instance, let's just say you have enter exit running at a door at the front of a building, and you're going to determine, okay, I want this to run between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. because that's really the nefarious hours of activity. As soon as a person is, or object or person is identified in that scene, you can play a WAV file right off of the camera from a micro SD card. So if you want to pre-play the police are coming, don't dump here, or whatever your messaging would be, you can attach a speaker to it and play it right off the camera. So it's a pretty cool feature there. We also have built-in gyro sensors. So it can take up to 90 mile per hour wind gusts, and it will recorrect that. Same type of idea as your phone. So if you're looking at your phone landscape versus portrait orientation, we have the same type of technology built into the camera. So we're going to use digital image stabilization, which everyone uses for any type of correction on pole swing or wind blowing. And then we're also using a gyro sensor too. So it is a lot better job. Any type of vibrations you're going to run through. Press slamming in a manufacturing facility, for instance, is something we see typically with this as well. And on top of that, we have shock detection. So if someone hits the camera, an object hits the camera, you can get a live event sent from the camera with that as well. These are just, once again, some of these features Jason's going to go over, and I'm eating up a lot of his time, so I'm going to make this pretty quick here. Once again, these are industry-leading cameras in our X-Series lineup between low light, wide dynamic range, frame rate. Everything is triple codec with H.265, H.264, and motion JPEG. Some of our wide dynamic range technology, we're using 4-frame composite WDR. Think of the shutter of the camera as your eyelid. So when it's really bright out, it's going to close down that shutter because it's actually trying to keep the light from blinding your eye. When it's dark out, that shutter is going to open all the way up just like your eyelid. You want to draw as much light into that imager as possible to make a forensic scene. Now what we're going to do is we actually automate the shutter to take a low, high, and 2 medium exposures. And then we combine all those frames into one image so you can see the front and the back and everything in between for any type of variances in lighting. And once again, this comes down to that R&D that's built into this technology. We're looking for these type of conditions where most of their competitors are shying away from it. Highlight compensation is also in our X-Series cameras. I have a live picture of this running. If you guys need it, let me know. It's from a large shot on a drive with a truck driving 25 miles an hour. And what the camera does is it blacks out the headlights so you can read the plate either front or back. It's really good in live environments. I actually run it in my front yard. I have a really high bright light bulb on my lamppost that blinds my camera. So I put HLC on to block that out. So it can help your conditions you're dealing with. I've seen a lot of guys that can't move a wire run and it's right on top of the light, and traditionally they want to get it away from it. This usually will fix that as well. Low light, once again, I don't even use IR in most of my cameras at my house. The low light is good enough. If you have some type of ambient light or a good lighting scene, you can run it in color at night. We do have industry-leading low light technology sensors. So we do all backlit imagers. All of our cameras are fantastic with low light. A lot of the stuff Jason's going to talk about with H.265, but the only thing I want to say here, besides for the fact that it drops your total cost of ownership and increases your drive space, is we have been using H.265 for so long that we've actually end-of-lifed H.265 cameras. We have competitors that still don't even have H.265 because they're waiting for their supplier to create the PCB board for them to put in the camera to get that. This is not a firmware flash. This has to be done on a hardware level of the chipset to get this camera to go into H.265. We've seen about a 40% reduction just side by side every day from 264 to 265. And using different metrics, we can drop that even lower. And this is stuff that Jason will touch on. We use high efficiency IR LEDs that spans across the scene better. If you look at the bottom left you have a clumped up flashlight effect, or halo effect as they call it, because they're using a lot of those bubbles, multiple bubbles, those clear plastic cheap bulbs. We use about 4 per camera, 2 for a bullet, and it spans the scene better top to bottom, left to right. As you can see, just has a better overall image and doesn't overshadow the middle of your scene. We have analytics. I'm going to talk about them in the next slide, but what we can do with our analytics is very customizable and cool, is we can actually hand over a PTZ off of an analytic trigger. So if you have your traditional, every end user, they've seen CSI, hey, I want to see Billy get in the back of his car from 3,000 feet away on a 2.82 megapixel fixed camera. And you're like, okay, I can give you a quarter of a pixel. This is the way around that. So in that type of situation, when the car drives into the scene and breaches a virtual line, the camera can send a camera to camera, MAC address and MAC address communication that the BTZ will zoom in and auto track that object. So you have some forensic detail from a large distance. So it gives you more versatility, and we're not using any type of alarm out of the camera. It's the camera to camera technology, and when you can touch the VMS, if it's an open platform scenario too. These are the X series analytics here. We have our AI camera, which Jason's going to talk about, which is all machine learning. So it's a whole different ballgame. These just are our license-free everyday analytics that are in our X. Q has a few of them as well. Each spec sheet will have a breakdown on which analytic each camera has. And if you need a breakdown by chipset, please let us know and we can take care of that too. But appear and disappear, so an object coming in or out, someone loitering for too long in front of the door, a virtual line, and you can do up to 8 individual lines, and you can draw those, and I'll let Jason talk a lot about that. He's going to be getting into that, but a really good overall suite of analytics. And what we're seeing too is the gunshot being a big one. The sound classification does require a external mic to be able to pick up the accuracy, because looking for the signature of a gunshot, it's not actually going off a decibel readout. So all these analytics, not to be oversold, but are free analytics that are in those cameras. So if you want to use them today or use them in the future, they are available, and I'll let Jason talk about that a little more. The last slide I'm going to talk about is anyone that's been in the field and has done a proof of concept for a customer on older cameras, let's just say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, always had to worry about which browser they're going to use with which chipset and which manufacturer. So is this PP API and P API? Is it going to be Netscape? It's going to be Mozilla? It's going to be Safari? Those are done now. We have all HTML5 plugin free browsers. So getting in and out of the camera is much easier, and we've added a lot of features into them. Our user interface has a menu button. So if you go down here, and if I'm to circle this help button here, you click that and it will mirror image what you're looking at, and it will explain every single feature of that camera and how to activate it. And it's just a clear printout that populates right from the chipset, right on your interface, so you have your side-by-side step guide on how to use the camera. So once again, not worrying about any more cybersecurity on top of that. These plugins really are cyber risks, is we have gone to plugin-free browsers, and we're using HTML5 interface, which I think is really a leg up on our competition as well. With that, I'm going to stop here just because I literally have like 30 more slides, and I hate doing this to people in the first place, and let Jason grab the wheel and show you guys the cool stuff in action.
All right, unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. All right, so one. Oof. I don't know if my screen is sharing or not. This thing is kind of acting weird. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Just your icon right now.
What's that?
I just see your icon. It says it's showing as you're presenting, but it's only showing your icon for some reason. Did you share your full screen?
Yeah. It's like Google or Chrome just freaking glitched out. Yeah, my Chrome's all messed up now. Ugh, I can't do anything. Okay. Yeah, this is weird. I'm gonna have to close this thing out.
Okay, I can just take the wheel back. So let me know when you guys can see my screen again.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay. So I'll go back to this real quick, just because I want to hit a few things on here, and then I'll flip over to the roadmap and give you guys a demo here. Get back up here. Okay. So a breakdown of the P series. So we have the 4K line as well as our multi-image, and we put them together in the P series because we have a plethora of multi-imagers that add up to a 2 or a 4, a 10, a 12, a 20, and then technically a 22 megapixel imager. So we have our multi-imagers and our 4K line, and the 4K line comes with your typical fisheye, bullet, indoor, outdoor, and then also a dome too. The difference with our cameras than the other competitors as well is we come out of box 8 megapixel, 30 frames per second, but you can take that exact same camera and push it to 12 megapixel, giving you 4 million more pixels in the scene, and you're going to only drop 10 frames. So you can do 12 megapixel at 20 frames per second. So that gives you the better versatility to have more pixel density and more pixels on target for digital zooming. So if you're looking for a high megapixel but not a break the bank megapixel, we have that medium as well. We have a fisheye that is 9 megapixel, 12 megapixel total usable at 25 frames per second. And then we have a number of multi-sensor cameras. So we have multi-directional and then our multi-imager cameras. Some of those stitch together and some of them are independent. Jason, you want to try this again? Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I got you. So I'll try it now.
Presents my entire screen. Screen 1. Share.
Okay, it looks like it's working now.
Yeah, that's working.
Okay, so everything's good?
It's weird. It started loading your screen and didn't show it again.
It seems to be working on my end.
Do you see his? Maybe it's my end then.
I can see it.
Okay, I'll just mute myself. Must be my PC.
All right, so yeah, let's just jump into the AI cameras because that'll lead to K and some other stuff as well. So like Noel's talking about the X Plus and being able to upgrade in the future, that's exactly what these modules are. I mean, aside from a bullet camera or a box camera, because those are kind of unique, but any of the other form factors, you can just pop out the X Plus series camera and drop in one of the AI cameras. Disregard the 2 and 4 megapixel. Everything that we're selling with the AI right now is 8 megapixel just due to the amount of pixels that you really need to be able to either identify an object or be able to pull in attributes like the color of their clothing or gender and different things like that. Built-in IR, they are PoE plus. So like most of our single fixed lens exterior interior cameras are all standard PoE, but due to the size of the chip and the AI and everything running on there, it does need PoE plus. So it does need that additional power above just standard PoE. So when we're looking at, we can pull 4 different classifications or 4 different objects from this. So we can tell if it's a person. So not just like in our Wisenet 5 analytics, which are very good, but it's just looking for an object in the scene. It's saying, I see some pixels that are about the same light reflection and they're moving in that direction. I think that's an object. Whereas with the AI camera, now with all the learning that we put in beforehand, before we put it into the chip, it knows what a human is looking like. So as an object is moving through, it sees the leg, the arm, the different movements of a human and how it looks in the video. And it says, that's a person. I am X percentage sure. So it'll actually have a likelihood factor. So it knows like, hey, I'm 90% sure this is a person. I'm 80% sure, or I don't know, this kind of looks like a person, but I'm only like 60% sure. So you can go back later and filter out. So if you're looking for something and you're not quite finding what you're looking for, you can say, well, just drop down from maybe I'm at a 90% level, drop it down to 80%. Maybe I'll be able to find what I'm looking for. Then I can pull in a vehicle object. I can pull in a license plate. Now, all it's doing right now is just tagging a license plate as an object. It's not reading it. It's not doing anything. We'll talk about our license plate camera. What we're looking at later this year, early next year, is being able to utilize this piece, the object detection of a license plate, in conjunction with the actual license plate recognition, which is actually reading it. And then also face detection as well. So it can detect a face. It can tell gender, is wearing glasses and or hats, and then also approximate age from that face. Each one of these, so when we look at the top wear, the bottom wear on a person, it can detect up to 2 colors. So if I've got a green and black striped shirt, it should pull up green and black. So when I go back and search for it, I can look for either and it would pull up. And then also the bottom wear, the ability to pull up to 2 colors and what length it is as well. So both the top and the bottom, it'll tell you short sleeve or long sleeve. So for some additional attributes to search on. Vehicles, it's going to tell you what type of vehicle. Car, SUV, those things are kind of all lumped together. Truck, bus, and then motorcycle / bicycle as well. And then up to 2 colors on those vehicles. So this is doing it right at the camera level. So it has access to the video that's directly on the camera. It's constantly analyzing it. And once it sees, hey, here's a person, I'm able to extract these attributes. It sends those attributes basically over a text file or ONVIF metadata to the VMS to be stored to search for later, which I'll show you in both our Wave VMS, which is still beta, and then also our Milestone plugin to be able to search for those attributes. So instead of just going back and looking for motion detection, I can go back and say, hey, show me every time a person came in the scene with a blue shirt or something like that. The other thing that this helps us with is business intelligence analytics. So we have these on Wisenet 5 and they're okay. So if I want to do people counting, I have to take this camera, I put it overhead, it has to look straight down, and I have to draw this line, and anytime an object goes across the line, it could trigger that. And that may be something similar to a person again, but not an actual person. The problem with this is, one, you don't get that great of a count. It's good for an average, like, hey, about this many came in. But if I'm looking for something detailed, like if I want to do the occupancy, so if I know I can't have more than 20 people in my building right now, I want to be able to know that, hey, I don't have a lot of these false alerts that's accidentally counting too many people or not counting enough people. I need this to be far more accurate. And I don't want to spend all the money on a camera just to have it do one thing in the system. Well, with the AI, because we can actually classify a person in the scene rather than having to do it the hard way of putting this thing overhead, now we can actually use one camera, put it in the back, get our nice corner security shot that we typically get to pick up people's faces and details and things like that. But now we can actually use this as a business intelligence tool far more efficiently than we could the older cameras and be able to gather that data. You can view the data right on the camera. You can have it emailed out on a daily or weekly basis. And we also have a product called Retail Insight, which actually will go out and gather all this data and store it in a centralized server and allow you to just log in and view different data from different cameras and compare, people counting or average people count on this site compared to this site on this day or this week or whatever. So we have the software to be able to pull all that stuff together if anybody's interested in that. Going into the 8K piece, the 8K also has all the AI stuff that we've talked about. So this will also be able to do the object classification and then also the attribute extraction. So ours is 32 megapixel at 15 frames per second. So most of the competition isn't even a true 8K. It's close to 8K resolution. but they're down at like 6 or 7 or 8 frames per second. We're using a standard Canon lens, so we do make most of our own lenses and things like that. But once we get up into this, the lenses become highly specialized, right? Because they're a very, very refined couple of pieces of glass that are in there. So we'll leave that to the experts and use those Canon lenses there. It's a true day-night, so we're able to pull in a lot better low-light video, which is another thing that our competition struggles with in higher resolution cameras, is that once the light starts to go out, right, in most cameras, you start to see deteriorating quality level, unless you have IR or something like that built in, which the TNB or the 8K is made to capture a very large area. So trying to put IR LEDs on that thing would be very expensive. So these cameras have great low light. They also H.265. So like Noel talked, being able to use that far more efficient compression algorithm compared to H.264 is able to bring that bandwidth down. And when we bring the bandwidth down, that ultimately lessens the amount of storage you need as well. So we can tie that into the AI piece. So we want to record only when there's a vehicle or a person in the scene. Now we're getting away from the old motion detection piece too, which is pretty faulty. You get a lot of false alerts and things like that on motion detection. Now we're moving over to, hey, we know there's a person, we know there's a vehicle, now let's trigger our events based on this rather than just motion detection, which is just changing pixels. We'll take a quick look at some video of this as well. So I'm actually in our VMS right now, Wave VMS, so I've just got some slides in here because we can pull in different local files and things like that. So let's just open up a new tab here, search for 8K video. So this is some video that we shot just for some testing purposes to see how many of these cameras we would need to cover an indoor stadium like this. So this is down at IU, their basketball stadium. And with this, we were able to utilize 4 cameras, each covering one quadrant of this pole. And as we zoom in, see if I can find Brian down here. Yep. So as we zoom in, we're able to see that there's a person there, looks like a male, and we see the different varying light levels here as well. Now, attribute extraction isn't going to work at those distances, and also our AI can cover up to 255 objects in a scene, but obviously if this was full of people, we're going to have more than 255 people as well. So they were really happy with this. They said they would be able to go in and, you know, pretty much identify this person based off of this here. So we can tell it's probably male. They've got a sweater with a white shirt underneath, looks kind of green, black pants. Looks like a male with a beard. So we got some pretty good attribute data there to be able to just cover this whole thing with 4 cameras. And then you got your standard cameras at your entry exit points. So you're able to watch that scene until you see somebody that, you know, closely resembles what we're seeing here. But still being able to cover, you know, this whole stadium with 4 cameras and get, you know, pretty darn good detail for one camera covering that amount of area. This is another one we kind of zoomed in a little bit just to cover the student section to see how that will work, see if we can get more detail. So if I just pause this here. So we're zoomed in a little bit. We got a little bit better pixel density here. So here we're able to capture Noel. We can see his face a little bit better. We've got a little bit better color retention. But one thing, when we go back to the other scene here, is to just look at the complexity of the lighting. Cameras don't like complex lighting. They don't like when you have a lot of different types of lighting. So here we've got natural lighting or different lighting coming from up here. We've got different types of lighting in covering the actual floor. And lighting this part up, and then we've got a lot of these dark areas and shadowy areas. Cameras really don't like this. So being able to go in here and in this kind of shadowy area here by this entryway, being able to pick up that we've got a person and the amount of detail that we're able to pull in there with that 8K camera is pretty good. So let me disconnect from this system and we'll take a look at one of the AI cameras on a couple different systems here. So let's take a look. This one's, I like this one. It's on one of the other FAE's houses down in Florida. So it usually shows pretty well because it's typically pretty nice down there. So the Wave client is just restarting into a beta version that we have our AI plugin already set up, and we've been doing some testing here. So here's his camera view, and I'm just going to go over here to, oh, we got some kind of issue going on there. So you can see it's picking up this truck there. There's a car here. Oh, it's actually picking that up as well. I didn't know if it would pick that up because it's more than, it's probably about more than 50% occluded. So typically, if it's more than 50% occluded, it will not pick up that object. But it's only picking up the front here, and it's still picking this up. Now this is pretty beta, so you see some of the actual attributes coming through as they would be if you were looking at the actual streaming metadata. But you can see here we're picking up attributes there. It looks like maybe we're only picking up that this is an object, just because it's kind of partially occluded. It's a little bit further away. And you can see there's some vehicles here. So there's a car. There's a truck. There's a person there. So I can go in here if I want to filter out. I just want to see anytime there's a person in the scene. I can filter by people. It looks like something's going down there. I don't know if I got a bad connection down the site or what. Let's try selecting the area here.
Is that him in the tank top? The Hanwha guy?
No. No, that wasn't Eric. So here, as soon as that guy came out of the FedEx truck, boom, it picked him up as a person. I think it's picking up some of their neighbors there too. And there's, yep, I picked her coming right out of the USPS. Man, they're getting a lot of packages over there. Couple of guys walking down the street there. That's Eric right there. So you can see, as we're going through and we're looking at this, we're finding when we clicking on these events, it's actually people. Unlike motion detection, where you turn on motion and you hope for the best, kind of. I mean, you can set some variables, but typically you end up with a lot of false motion events, and you're clicking through and you're clicking through and you're clicking through. Here we can say, hey, I can draw an area, and if a person comes in this area, then trigger an alert, not just off of basic motion detection. So it eliminates that kind of alarm fatigue that people get. They say, hey, I want you to turn on motion events. I want to get an email every time I get, motion on that camera. And then 5 minutes later, like, whoa, turn that off because I keep getting too many motion events. So this eliminates a lot of that. It'll reduce your amount of storage you need as well, because you're not going to have recording as many false motion events if you're recording on motion. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this object detection alongside of, just recording and triggering events and different stuff like that. So here's one that I've got set up in my house. Oh, that's the wrong one, sorry. I got two systems in my house. While we're waiting for that to load, let me jump over. I know you wanted me to talk about the LPR camera as well. That was before that crashed, though. So here, I've just got mine in my garage I've been testing. It's pulling in my bike. So it's pulling in as a bicycle there. It's got my my car, my Toyota, and then it's got the Honda out there as well. And then if I go in, I could filter by vehicle tracking. I could just type in red. So here I'm just typing in whatever I want to look for. So I'm filtering by vehicles, but then I just type red. So it's going to show me anytime there's a red vehicle coming to the scene. So this might be probably a vehicle driving by, or it's just picking up my car still. No, it just keeps up picking up my car that's in the scene there. Okay, well, that probably wasn't the best thing to search off of. So let me actually show you the Milestone interface. I think I've got it pulled up here. This one's a little more cleaner than our beta version. So when I go in and search, when I go to search for, I've got the different stuff that I can do in Milestone, but then I've got face. So when I choose face, I do a new search. I can search by male or female. I can search by approximate age, hat or no hat, or glasses or no glasses. So I don't think anybody's been in the garage there, so let's just search in the last 12 hours. So this is more akin to what ours will look like once we get through the whole beta phase and get that released in the next couple of months here. So now I just search for any time a male face appeared in the scene. So with face, I got to be fairly closer to the camera. And there's me doing some work earlier on my lunch break, taking down. I've got a big LED tree I was testing for my Christmas show this December. So if I go back here, I search for license plates. I can't really pull up any license plates because they're kind of too far away. It doesn't have the right pixel density. But if I go in and search for person, I can go in and say male. I can say long sleeve upper shirt. And if I want to, let's see, where do I go in? Upper color. So I want to see anytime there's anybody that has a long sleeve shirt that's actually blue. There's one there. Let's see what this is here. Oh, it's me out there mowing my grass earlier. So just some example. I mean, far easier to go through and I'm looking for a person. I know kind of approximately what I'm looking for. I can just go in, click a few buttons, filter by those results, and here's the results that match what I wanted to filter off of. Of course, I had my blue shirt on, so I kept walking around, so we got a lot of results on that one. All right, so jumping over to the LPR piece here. Actually, while that's loading, we go in. We'll take a look at a site that's actually got one. It is a low-speed LPR, so it's not a full LPR camera with a global shutter and the synchronized IR and all that stuff. It's made more for a lower speed environment or where they're actually stopping. So I'm just using WaveSync here to disconnect from this system, and then we'll jump into another system here that has a good one set up. But I just wanted to jump onto the site just so you could take a look at what this is. So I just searched LPR, pull up the LPR camera. And it does have some pretty strict guidelines if you want to read plates correctly. Because we can put up a camera at pretty much any angle and shoot it and get plates at during daytime all the time, no problem. In fact, that's the main thing that people say is, hey, we put this camera up. I notice I'm getting plates during the day with no problem, but at night, I don't get any plates because at night in low lights with IR reflection and different stuff like that, that's when it becomes really the hard part and the most challenging part of actually picking up license plates. So if you do have anything that you want to quote that license plate for, license plate recognition camera for, you can go right on here, pick up the quick reference, and then this has the guidelines for what you need for install. But the two most critical ones are 20% maximum vertical and horizontal angle. So I can't put this on a corner of a building that's looking 45 degrees to the entry exit point. Again, I'm probably going to pick it up, no problem, when there's plenty of light. But as soon as the light goes down, then you're not going to be able to pick those license plates up. And what this application does as well is it runs right on the edge on the camera. It's doing optical character recognition directly on the camera, and then it just streams that basically text to Wave. Wave creates a bookmark on it that I can go back and search for later. But again, this is really the two critical pieces, is to get underneath that 20-degree maximum and, horizontal angle. So let me jump back into Wave now. That should be connected up. Now we'll take a look at the LPR camera here. XMP. Oh yeah, there's an XMB, not an XMO. This right here where it says j.clement@hanwha.com over the video, this is actually a setting that you can turn on in Wave to stop people from just using their camera on their phone to record playback video. So they know, some people may know that, hey, if I export this video, it's logged, and they're going to be able to find if I post this on Reddit, something funny happened and I really shouldn't be, exporting and posting. So they'll just take their phone and just record it on that and then post it to whatever they want. And it's much harder to track. Whereas with this, you can actually overlay their username. So if they try to do that, boom, they're automatically going to be found. So here, I'm just going to go and look under my bookmarks, and then I can search by plate. If I know the actual plate, I can pull that in. So, not sure, why is this just showing camera disconnected? All right, let's do this the easier way. So we'll just go in and look at our bookmarks here, and we'll search these by plate. So here's all the different plates that come through, so I can just double click on one of these. We'll wait till this vehicle comes through here. And we'll jump by there. So it picked up plate 7Y331867, and it picked it up pretty good there. So let's pull another one in here. I just got the list off to the side on my other screen here, so let's take a look. The vehicle came through here. Back, go back. That one's a little bit off center. AV01878. So, boom, it just runs directly on the camera itself. It streams that into Wave, takes a bookmark, and then you can go back. It tags it as plate, whatever it is. So I just typed in plate to pull up all of them, but you could just type in whatever that is. So 6V7 is one right there. So I just typed there. This person must drive through there a lot because their license plate's in there quite a bit. So it looks like it's also tagging it twice. You can see one in single quotes and one without. So I think they might have two different rules stored in there. So there's, see, two different rules. So that's why it's showing up twice. Somebody accidentally created two different rules for it. But you can see here, if I scroll through it, it's picking up the same license plate every single time. So that's really good. Pretty high accuracy, as long as it's installed within the correct parameters. Should have 98% accuracy on those reads. And again, it's just, you can buy it straight from us. It's got the app loaded on there, plug it in, run through the diagnostics, get it set up, and then it streams directly into Wave as a bookmark that you can go back and search for whenever you want to. I know we hit 7 o'clock, so I could probably ramble on about some other stuff, but I just want to see if you guys have any questions, or if we wanted to keep going.
We can keep going. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop it in Slack or chime in here, but we can go over on time. That's not a problem. So if you want to keep going, or Mason, are you still on the call?
Yep, I'm still on the call.
Okay. Did you want to keep going, Mason?
Yeah, no, I this has all been really great and educational for me. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's keep going. And then if there's any questions, just drop it in Slack.
All right, cool. So let me disconnect from here. So what I'm using here is Wave Sync, and we didn't really go too much into Wave, but this is our VMS platform. So it's basically every camera that you have in the system, you buy a license for it, and you get free updates for life. So you buy the license one time, you don't have to pay for any updates or anything like that. There's no ongoing costs. We're not going to ding you when we go up a major version. So it's not like, oh, you buy the software now and we're at 4.0. When we come out with 5.0, you got to rebuy the software. No, you get, when 5.0 comes out, you'll get that update for free. So you don't have to pay any additional cost. So it's just that one flat license cost. So these are all different systems that I've been invited to. So WaveSync is a free service that we provide. When you put a system online, you get everything set up, and they're always like, how do I view this remotely? Well, WaveSync allows you to do that without opening up any ports or creating VPNs or doing anything crazy like that. You literally just link the system up to WaveSync, and then you can go in and invite other users with different roles. So if I want to invite somebody that I only want to see certain cameras, I create a role for that. I put in their email, I select that role, they get an email saying, hey, you've been invited to view the system. They go in, they create a free user. So it's literally 4 fields, first name, last name, email, and what password they want to use. And then they'll have a screen like this to view whatever systems that they've been invited to view. So I can just go in here and click on mine, which is Middle Earth, because I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. And now I can view my system that I've got here. So it looks like one of my servers is a little bit out of date, which is no big deal. Now a couple other things that Mason mentioned that he wanted to see was the PoE extender camera. So these we just released, so these are out. There's actually 2 network ports in the camera, and it's based on the X Plus mechanical design, and you get all the X series analytics and everything that Noel talked about earlier. So basically PoE plus into the camera, and you get a PoE port out to go down to another camera. And it comes in a indoor or an outdoor or indoor vandal resistant, both in 2 megapixel and 5 megapixel versions. And what that looks like is coming out of the switch, you've got PoE plus into the camera, and then you've got PoE out 80 meters. I'm not sure why it was 80 meters instead of 100, but it's a little bit less distance, but still, I've got a camera in the middle of the hallway, and then I've got one more camera down at the end of the hallway. I don't have to run another cable all the way back to my IDF or MDF. I can just come off of that camera and link it up to another camera, to a Wi-Fi access point that's maybe going, across the street to pick up a couple of cameras at their little annex building that they have, rather than trying to trench fiber or do something crazy like that, or, run a whole nother cable from my Wi-Fi access point. You can come directly off that camera to a door access control. Basically anything that you can power off a PoE, you can come right off of that camera. If you're doing any maintenance on this camera, that's first in line. So you're doing a firmware update, and it goes in, it does a firmware update, the camera reboots, it's going to maintain that power to the second device. So if anything happens to this camera, you're going to continue to get power down to that secondary device, unless this thing gets just like fried totally, like, I don't know, the water leaks through the roof and leaks into the camera and, destroys the actual camera itself. But other than that, you get it's the X Plus design, all the same X Plus analytics and everything like that. Basically, you just got a second NIC port in order to utilize that to add a secondary device off of that, straight off of PoE. The other thing would be our PTRZ cameras. I don't think I added that into here. Don't find that here. PTRZ. Here we go. And then my JD port. All right, so if you're familiar with our multi-sensors, these are basically 4 cameras in one housing. So some other manufacturers are still, they'll take multiple lenses and feed them into one chip, which is detrimental because now you have to split your frame rate. If you make a change, it affects all the lenses. It's a real pain. So if one camera is looking at a very bright area and you need to turn WDR on, you turn WDR on for everything. Whereas with our multi-sensors, you have essentially 5 chips in there. You have one chip for each lens, and then one controller chip that brings everything together and communicates. So those were released a couple of years ago. Those were great. But now we released another round of these with PTRZ. And PTRZ is pan, tilt, rotate, and zoom. So it's not a standard PTZ camera where you got a guard with a joystick and he's moving it around all the time. This is more for setup. So anybody can literally come back. So you run a cable, anybody can go up and mount that camera. They don't have to go into the camera and aim and focus and all that stuff. You can leave that for somebody else who, maybe designed the system and knows what all the field of views should be, or you've got it set up where your cable pullers go out, pull the cable, and they drop the camera up there, and then somebody else comes back and programs everything. So in that case, I might have to go out with a ladder or lift and go up there and aim and adjust those cameras. With PTRZ, again, anybody can set that camera up, put the cover on, get it all set up, and then the person programming the system can just log in there. They can move the cameras around the track. They can zoom that in. If you want to put them in the hallway mode, because all of our cameras can go into hallway mode, you can rotate that lens as well. So you can do all that functionality of pan, tilt, rotate, zoom after the fact. And it doesn't then give that ability to the end user to then go in and manipulate it and move it around, because those are just low power motors made to just cycle through. I believe they're rated for up to 200 times. So for initial install is great. If the camera's looking at something, but it needs to look at a different thing a couple of months later. So like an art museum or something like that, where maybe looking at an exhibit for 3 months and then a new exhibit shows up and I need to move that over. Well, again, you got to come out with a ladder or a lift, get up there, move that around. PTRZ, you can just log in, move that over to look at what it needs to look at. Another one that I had that came up was a waste management facility. They wanted to watch a certain area during the spring and summer, and then another area in the winter and fall. So they were up like almost 30 feet on these eaves that they were looking out over this thing. So it was ridiculous to get a lift out there twice a year to move those around. So we put PTRZ cameras up there because we also have this PTRZ support in single lens, specific single lens models as well. But you get all the analytics and everything that Noel talked about earlier along with this, but the PTRZ allows you to just drop this thing in and move it. And we released 2 models. So this is 4 times 2 megapixel sensors. And these ones actually have IR built in as well. So our cameras have fantastic low light, but sometimes you just don't have light out there. Or a lot of people are convinced, hey, I have to have IR on this camera, regardless of the technology or whatever you're told. So this has all the same great stuff as our previous cameras, but it also adds the IR and the PTRZ piece in there as well. So that's 4 2 megapixel cameras, and then we've also got 4 5 megapixel cameras as well, with the PTRZ piece built in there. And then within Wave, one thing I want me to touch on was the actual failover piece. So Wave is extremely scalable. So here on my little test site here in my house, I've got 2 servers. I've got my laptop, and then I've got a little VM server, and I just have a camera on each one. So with Wave, I can put 128 cameras on each server. So with these 2 servers, I could have 256 cameras or video streams on just one system. And what's really cool is if I go in and I get everything licensed up like I have, licenses are just, they're basically cumulative in a system. So if I have 5 servers and 400 cameras, it doesn't matter where those cameras reside on the system. They can be anywhere as long as I don't exceed the total amount of licenses that I have. In my case here, it's just 4. So I can literally take this camera and just drag it over onto this other server, and it's just going to start recording over on that other server. So I don't have to change any licenses. I don't have to do anything. If this camera dies and I need to replace it, I literally just replace it, turn the old camera off, turn the new camera on, and that's it. I don't have to go to a licensing portal and update anything or anything like that. So it makes it real simple there. And one piece that we add in is failover. So in the system, there's no master server. So you look at Milestone and Genetec, which are great partners, and they definitely have their place in the enterprise world where you need a lot of that more control. But with Wave, there's no master server. So these two servers in my system, they're just talking to each other. So they're sending keep alive messages. If I add a new user, it says, hey, I just added this user Noel. Here's his user information. And it turns it over and it replicates the database onto my laptop server. So I don't have to go in and set up this structure or anything like that. If I want to add another server, I just point it to either one of these and say, hey, add this to my Middle Earth system. And it'll just add in, it'll replicate all the databases that I need so I can log in anywhere in the system. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get the privileges I need just because all the servers, they talk to each other and they share all that information. They share these databases. So what that allows us to do is this failover piece. Everybody likes to say, oh, we add failover for free, but we do. The failover piece isn't any additional cost, but it's just part of the way the system works because all these servers talk to each other. So if I go into this server here, and I'm just going to replicate the server going down by just stopping the service. So if I go to my Hanwha Media server, I'm going to stop it. So if we go over here, the server went down. The server's down, the camera's moved over to the laptop, and they're back up and recording. And sometimes it just doesn't, there we go, pulled up the live view. So just like that, it's a small system, it's only 2 cameras, but it saw the failover within a couple seconds. Faster than that, it was probably within a second it saw that server went offline. It moved the cameras over to the laptop, and now they're recording on there. And it doesn't matter where the video's at. I just started recording these prior to coming on here just so it doesn't fill up my laptop. But it doesn't matter where the video's at. So the previous video was recording on server Wave. So I just click there. Some of it's not going to be there because it was recording on the Wave server and that server's down. But once we bring this server back up and it recognizes it's online, it doesn't matter where the video's at. Wave keeps track of, hey, some of this video is on this server, some of this video is on the other server. And when you click on it, it's able to then, it just knows where the video's at. So it just presents this timeline. So I don't have to remember, oh, I had some video on server Wave. I have to log into that server and pull it up. No, it doesn't matter. You'll get presented a timeline. You click on it. It pulls up the recorded video, except in this case, because that server's down and the video's on that server. So I could just go in and turn that server back on. So we turn the server back on, basically, oh, I fixed it. I plugged everything back in and got everything back up and running. And the cameras are online and recording on the laptop. And then once it finishes recording its chunk of video to the laptop, you'll see those cameras move back over to the Wave server. Let's see here. So that was the Wave failover piece, which is great because almost every other VMS, they either do one of 2 things. One, they charge you a lesser price for some basically hot failover licenses. So you basically have extra licenses in your system to accommodate something. Or they charge you for failover period, and you have to pay an additional cost. I was literally at one site where they had failover turned on, and he's like, okay, it's going to take about 45 minutes. I got to fail over these cameras from the server so we don't lose any video. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, the failover for this system takes 45 minutes to take all the cameras from this server and move it over to the other servers. Whereas this, happens almost instantaneously as long as your data communication is very fast, which obviously it is when I've just got a little system in my house here. But you see that server came back up. It finished recording this chunk of video to the laptop and moved the cameras back over to the original server. I didn't have to do anything. It just, all you have to do, I lied. I did have to do one thing. I had to go into a server and I had to flip this little switch for failover on, and that's it. Device Manager. This is the program that we use to find our cameras on a network, configure them. We can output a report on here. So I'll spend a couple minutes on here, and then we can open it up if you guys have any more questions. I don't want to take up everybody's night here. But this is a free application you can download from our website. So I searched on my network. It found all my devices. So I've got some different recorders on my network. I've got a camera that's obviously got a default IP address in it. And then I have all these other cameras that I have sitting on my network. So I can filter by my cameras. I can go to this camera. So this has a default address because it has an older firmware. Actually, our newest firmware on our cameras, there's no default address in it at all. It used to be initially you do 4321 to get into it, but as part of the new cybersecurity rules, there's no default IP. So when you pull up the new cameras, it's just going to say, hey, you have to put a password in here before I'm going to let you get to the camera itself. So here I'm just going to change it to a complex password that meets our requirements. And then I'll highlight the rest of them so I can go in, put the credential in, so I can get a login okay, so I see everything. But it makes it real fast. When you're trying to deploy a lot of cameras and you need to set IP addresses, you need to set time, you need to set the time on the camera, the correct time zone, synchronize that time. Maybe you need to turn the motion detection on the camera so it starts recording right away. You can do all that directly through Device Manager here. So I can select all my cameras. I can go up to my firmware. I could do a firmware status check, which it's already saying I've got some old versions of firmware on there. And then I can go in, I could upgrade that firmware. So I could download it directly through the tool and it'll populate everything in there. Or I can just click on here and point it to where the firmware is at that I already downloaded from our site and just update the firmware before I push everything out. I can go in here, I can assign my addresses. So the network admin has given me a range of, 10.1.150 starting at 10. And then it's just automatically going to populate those out there. I could simulate it. It's going to give me an error because my stuff's at the wrong subnet. Obviously, that's not going to work. But I hit simulate. It would tell me what all my IPs are. I'd apply. I don't want to change anything on my network because this is the addresses everything's running at right now. But you can easily push those IPs out. We already did the credential piece, so we pushed that out there. If I have devices on other parts of the network, so this finds devices directly on a network I'm connected to, but maybe I've got a big school and I've got all my different buildings on different parts of the network, but I want to see all the cameras in one interface. Well, search isn't going to find those likely because they're on different networks, but I can go up here to add devices, manually add a range of devices, put in the range, and it'll add the cameras in here. So if I got 500 cameras across the district, I could have them all directly in here, regardless of what network they're connected to. Again, I can set date and time. I can do different things like that. I can have a backup configuration of those cameras, so I can back up the configuration. So if I've got certain settings and stuff that I'd like to have on the camera, so like, hey, I've got my motion set up, I've got my password, I've got my time sync, I've got maybe some HTTPS configuration for certificates on there. I want to just roll this out to all the cameras instead of having to do it on every single camera. You can just go to the camera, do a config backup, and then select the cameras and just restore that configuration to all those cameras. The only thing it doesn't change is the IP, because you wouldn't want the same IP on all the cameras. But it's an easy way, once you have a configuration that you like, to just save it and then push it out to all the cameras. So it's all about trying to make that installation piece faster, because we know that you get bogged down in IPs and all this other stuff. So this just makes it quicker to find all that stuff, assign your IPs, get your credentials in, do your configuration, and be done. A couple other things is you can go to event setup and you can turn on your motion detection. So for example, Exact Vision and a lot of others use motion detection on a camera, but we don't turn it on by default. You can just go in here and enable motion detection and just draw a general single window sensitivity. So when you plug the camera in, boom, if you record on motion, it starts recording. And then you can go in and refine it later. One thing that I find that's not used a lot is tampering detection, which I think is great because you can have different forms of tampering. You can have malicious tampering where somebody spray paints it or tries to actively destroy that camera, right? And you can have non-malicious, which is in a school, kids hanging banners for prom or whatever off the ceiling. Well, people forget that cameras are there, and they hang a banner right in front of the camera. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, man, we need to go back and get video from that hallway from that event. But, well, there's a banner sitting in front of it. Well, tampering would have found that out because the banner would have obstructed the field of view. After a few seconds, the camera would have said, whoa, there's something wrong, send an event out. And then, the administrator could say, oh, man, this kid's hung a banner in front of the camera. I will go make them move it. So then in 2 weeks, when I need to find that video, it's there because the tamper detection was turned on and I was able to get notified of that event. And even if just like, next to your camera, sometimes a tree grows, by the end of summer, the tree's grown into the view of the camera. It's blown around and it's obscuring the view of the camera. Tampering could, probably pick that up as well. And also defocus detection. So if the camera starts to slightly go out of focus, the camera can figure it out. With most of the cameras now, they can actually refocus themselves, but then you can notify somebody and say, hey, camera's a little bit blurry. Why don't you take a look at it? So you can turn all that stuff on directly from here. So a lot of cool stuff that you can do directly from here, but those are kind of the major things that are done on the camera that are done across multiple cameras there. But yeah, I could keep talking all night, but I figure I'd just take a break here, see if anybody else has any questions, or if there's anything else specifically you wanted to go over.
The one thing that I've been using more recently is decoders, which has been something that I found really useful to do like some small video walls and whatnot. Been using the SPD 151, which most people that I've talked to now are familiar with that are in this meeting. But that was one thing that I found very useful. Obviously, that device manager is extremely useful. Is that SPD 151, is that getting a refresh or is that a fairly new item?
The 151 is fairly new, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in Slack, but this has been actually really, really informational, really good. Mason, was there anything else that we wanted to talk about other than, where can we get more information? How can we reach out? What are the next steps for Low Voltage Nation?
I don't have any more questions. I think that's a great point. What's the next steps for people that want to get involved?
Yeah, so you can go to hgapartner.com and sign up for our program. And also on our website, if you click on the sales tab, it will drop down into a cell phone as well as a email address for every local regional sales manager for Hanwha that's in your neck of the woods. And if you click manufacturer representatives, we actually have 2 layers of support. So up in the Midwest, Legacy is our manufacturer rep firm, but we hire these rep firms to be the boots on the street and help push our messaging as well as added layer of support for you guys locally. So you can hit up both your RSMs as well as your manufacturer reps because you're going to have multiple points of contact between your engineers, your RSMs, and your manufacturer reps in your space.
Cool. Well, very good. Well, Jason, Noel, Brian from Hanwha, and Mason, thank you so much for putting this together. We really appreciate it. So you guys know where to find us. We're in Slack and we're all over, and I'll have a recording on YouTube as well, so people can view this. So thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. You guys.
Thanks
for having us. Have a good one.
Bye.
Take care, guys.